Hey everybody, my name is Ebony. I'm currently the Director of Community Engagement and Storytelling here at 12 Plus.
And I'm Amy. I'm 12 Plus's social media intern. And this is
Discuss the
the
plus. We're working on it. No, we got it. All right. We have a special guest here with us today. We're going to ask him to introduce himself to our live audience. Just kidding.
live audience.
We don't.
Hello, my name is Andre. I usually go by Dre. I'm 20 years old from Philadelphia, and I graduated from Hill-Freedman World Academy back in 2018. I am currently a junior at Westchester University studying music education.
Another Westchester. We've got Westchester just, just here. Apparently. So we're definitely we are honored to have you. We have heard such good things about you from Ernest, from all those different folks that have worked at Hill-Freedman. So thank you for joining us today. We want to start off by talking about Dear Applicant, since that was one of our first kind of like short films that we've done for 12 Plus. But I want to hear your perspective on how your experience was filming that and then just, contributing towards that.
Of course. So Ernest came up to me because Ernest and I were like really good friends. He had done a lot for me as far as getting me ready for college and the application process and all like the things of that nature. And he goes, "Hey Dre, like we have this idea that we want to portray the application process from the applicant's point of view and try to like give insight on what that process is like, the do's and don'ts and all of like the ins and outs as far as like being punctual with it, what to put on your application to make yourself look marketable and presentable to the colleges." Yeah. And he goes, and I was allowed to pick any plus leader that I wanted. So are you interested? And I was like, yeah, of course. It's based off of my application process.
Okay.
So like I said, I'm a music education major, and that comes with two aspects. So when you're applying for the colleges, you have your actual application where it's like your transcript, your SAT scores and all of that. And then you have a separate audition. So it's very possible to get accepted into the university, but not the School of Music, and vice versa. Okay. So it's a double duty that you're doing. And that was one of the things that he really wanted to portray in Dear Applicant, because it's like, all right, we're taking the first steps towards the application. And that in itself feels like an uphill battle, which was definitely something that I think we executed really well. The art of procrastination, because that's something that everyone. Yep. So just portraying the procrastination, the anxiety that comes with applying, all the fears of rejection, and feeling like all your peers are getting ahead of you and progressing like where you can and things like that. So.
No, that's real, because I think the film definitely portrayed like some of the kind of like the insight of like how you feel when you're going through the application process, like you said, which I think a lot of folks don't think about. Like you just think, okay, you sit down, you do the application, you submit it, you get in or not, right? But there are these little feelings in between of like anxiety or like, am I going to get in, questioning yourself, kind of like going through like that self-doubt too of like, all right, am I good enough to get into university? Or like you said, even if I get in, I then have to, get into the actual college of music, or I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. But the audition, too, on top of that, which I think is definitely like highlighted in the film. And I think it was shot beautifully. I think it's really good.
Alex did an amazing job with
that.
He
did. Alex is A1. Alex is A1.
Yeah, Alex and Andrea, she was definitely asking my input on what we call the nightmare scene. It's yeah, and I basically, she asked me to describe what my biggest fear was during the application and audition process, and I broke it down to her, saying, "It's like I go and I walk on stage, do my audition, and I see that it's like my friends that are in front of me, not like some random panel. No, these are like people that I know. And when you're doing that, you feel like you have to impress them even more
Yeah.
because you already have that relationship with them. And going through that while on stage with the nerves going and everything, you have all these thoughts racing through your head. Am I going to mess up? Am I going to crack? Am I in tune? All these other things. And then you just end up looking like a fool and then getting escorted off the stage. So it was like my biggest fear going into auditions. And it was really cool seeing that be put on the screen and finding out that other people also felt that way.
No, that's real.
Yeah, I was telling Andre how I was actually at the, what was it, the graduation party when the short film was premiered. And I agree, like it was like such a moving piece and like very realistic, you know, like the college app process, it's not easy. And then after you're done, like you're just waiting to hear back. And I mean, I'm not in like music, so I don't know what the audition process was like, but it is like very scary. And the short film portrayed that, I mean, the emotion very well.
Oh,
And it was amazing because I
yeah.
got the chance to show the film to my other friends here at Westchester, and
Oh,
a lot of them had told me like, "Wow, that's spot on. That's exactly what I was feeling when I was
mm,
going through this."
Right.
mm.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
that's the yeah, I think like I just in general love like films, especially when they can kind of like tap into mutual things that people are feeling without actually having to say that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if there was a ton of students that felt that same way about those little moments of going through this application process, and that like that's how you we've been through that together in a sense, and that's how you kind of like build that relationship and get closer to that person, because like we kind of have like the same fears, like we were kind of experiencing the same things in these very different ways, but like we both have the same feelings towards that. So I think that the film really portrayed that very well. How was your so have you acted before, because we really would like to give you the first 12 plus Oscar. But how was like, you know, like the acting portion, like how did you take that on?
So I started doing drama my fifth grade year at my middle school.
Nice.
I did the drama department and the choral department all 4 years there. And then when Mr. Emerson, who runs like the IB program and the English
Mm-hmm.
department at Hill-Freedman, introduced the drama department there at Hill-Freedman, I jumped on that as well. So I'd been acting for a fair amount of time. And I know that Ernest was interested in pulling the people that were in the musical. So that's how like Raymond got involved in it,
Mm-hmm.
and Darion and a few like other people that are like popping throughout the film. It's because we were all part of the cast for the musical.
Nice, nice. That's why y'all work so well together, because y'all already. What did y'all do for music for the musical that year?
It's senior year, the pajama game.
Oh, okay, okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what kind of like where was how is your connection to music? Like where does that come from? Like let's talk about that, because I feel like music is like the center of everything that you do a lot in like so many different ways. So like tell us a little bit of how you got connected to music.
So it starts with my mom. My mother she grew up in Philly, born and raised. Actually went to girls high school, and she was in the All City Orchestra and All City Choir. So
Mm,
I grew up with her singing. And my brother was a percussionist, and there's a 10-year age gap between us. So while he was in
okay.
high school, really like honing in on his percussion skills, he was teaching me while I'm like 5, 6 years old. And that's where like that first started. And then my mom realized that like, hey, he actually likes music. So she enrolled me in piano lessons. I started that. And then I got to middle school, picked up my first woodwind, and ended up becoming the principal, which is like the top of the
Mm,
section. I got principal chair within 3 weeks of playing.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
impressive.
And then
Yeah.
took off from there.
From there. Wow.
What other instruments do you play?
So currently at Westchester, I'm a bassoon major. I came in as a saxophone major, and I can basically play all of the woodwinds minus oboe. I'm really bad at oboe. I played cello for orchestra,
Oh my god.
sing, and then I do percussion.
Wow. Man. That's
You say it just like casually, like I can play all of the woodwinds, or even the hand, like from top down. Like I can do them all.
Well, that's their end goal for us in the
Yeah.
education track. So we have to take these different pedagogy courses that teach us the instrument and teach us how to teach the instrument. So by the time I leave Westchester, I should be competent in all of the instrument families and be able to lead a student at from the beginner level up into almost the advanced level.
wow. Wow, that's super cool.
That is. So is your ultimate goal? What do you want to do? Like where do you see yourself in 4 years? Do you see yourself like as a music teacher, like elementary school? Like where will you be?
4 years, I see myself still in school because I want to get my master's in conducting, and
Oh,
I
nice.
want to be able to teach at the collegiate level.
Not elementary. Forget elementary. Elementary, like no, I'm beyond that. I'm beyond. No. Oh man, no, that's awesome. That is awesome. So how was I know it was kind of like portrayed in like Dear Applicant a little bit, but like how was like that application process, especially like the audition, like the actual audition? How did that go for you? Like how were you feeling about it? What piece did you use? Like give us the share the deep.
So I applied to four schools. I did the Word of Life Bible Institute because at the time I was thinking about being leading worship, and that
Hmm.
was like my stepping stone into that field. So I had that, Ohio State University, Westchester, and Temple. And three out of the four schools required an audition. And I was not necessarily worried about the academic portion of the application because I went to Hill-Freedman and they really prepared me with the IB program.
Like
And
I was ready.
4 years of like just pure academic vigor, which like looking back, amazing, but in the time it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
Um, and I was a part of the Community Music Scholars Program with Temple University. So
Okay.
for 2 years, I studied under Jason O'Mara, who was like a freelance saxophone player, a professional player. He plays in different pits and jazz bands
Mm.
all throughout Philly. Um, so I was under his direction for 2 years with the saxophone, and I ended up doing the Tableau de Provence for all three of my auditions, which is a French alto saxophone piece. Um, and I submitted a video audition for the Ohio State University, which Mr. Thurman helped me with. He set me up in the recording studio,
Yeah.
light set up, and the microphone, and made me look all nice, which I appreciated a lot,
Right.
seeing as I was already nervous going into it.
Yeah.
Submitted that, and they actually got back to me fairly quickly.
Mm.
The music school got back to me faster than Ohio State, and they welcomed me into the School of Music in the saxophone studio, saying like, we would love for you to come
Yeah.
uh, and tour, get a feel for the atmosphere. I'm sure you'll love the studio vibe and things like that.
Hmm.
And then I ended up getting accepted to the university with a few scholarships, but at the end of the day, it just still wasn't financially feasible.
Yeah.
Uh, I think my most successful audition was here at Westchester. The professor, Jonathan, turned it more into a lesson than an actual
Mm.
audition, which was really cool. We broke apart my piece after I played it and fixed like certain aspects, and then I played it again.
Mm.
Like, you sound 10 times better.
Wow.
That was the first time that I had ever experienced an audition like that.
Yeah.
Already made me feel at home. And I would definitely say my worst audition was at Temple.
No.
I,
You're
it was
not talking to two temple students or, or anything.
I'll keep it real with you.
No,
Temple
you're
was
all
my
good.
dream school. I was dead set on Temple, especially through the program. I was like, that's
Yeah.
where I want to go. And even though it was kind of a rough audition, I still ended up getting accepted to both the university
Oh.
and the School of Music. And up
Um,
until 3 days before decision day, I was committed to go to Temple.
the Temple. What changed? What changed your mind? What was the decision on Westchester?
Um, the head of the scholarships at Westchester, Dr. Grab, who's the elbow professor, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we would like to extend the Board of Governors scholarship to you, which covers all of your tuition for 4 years." And so at that point, the only thing I was
No
paying for
brainer.
was housing. And so
Look, I'd be like, Temple, what's your offer? What's your offer? Deal or no deal?
that's exactly what I was doing too.
Nah, you can't beat that.
And now I love it here. I'm
Yeah.
actually like currently here in Westchester.
Oh,
Uh,
you're there now.
yeah, I have an apartment that's about 7 minutes off campus, and I live with
Okay.
3 other music people.
Oh, that's awesome. That's dope. So how did you kind of like with the whole like COVID thing and like everything going online? Like how did you handle that?
It was an uphill battle. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were preparing to. This is around the time of spring break, and spring semester auditions are not auditions. Ensembles are in full effect, and
Okay.
Westchester was going to be the biggest representation at the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association, also known as PMEA. They have different districts throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Students audition into the different ensembles for choir, concert band, and orchestra, along with jazz ensembles as well. And Westchester's wind ensemble, which is the highest ensemble for wind instruments, their orchestra, and the choral ensemble Master Singers, which is the second highest ensemble, were all supposed to go and perform at the conference in the Poconos. That was
Okay.
also done in April. So I was in wind ensemble and Master Singers. So we were preparing all of our repertoire to go and perform at the conference. And then we got the news that we weren't going to be coming back after spring break. So that was the biggest like hitter for us because we have been spending so much time preparing and getting all of our repertoire polished. We had
Yeah.
gotten a lot of music like in the fall semester and making sure all of that was cleaned up. So that way, when spring semester got here, it was just a lot of fine tuning and not necessarily like learning the repertoire.
Mhm.
But aside from that, everything else, like our ensembles, turned into lectures,
Okay, I
which
was gonna ask like how did like classes kind of like change a little bit for you?
there was some give and take and definitely a learning curve.
Yeah.
Um, my music theory and my oral activity courses, which are sight singing and ear training, all of those were done through Zoom at the same time we would normally have them. So our professor just logged on, had class, and reported it. So that way, if there
Yeah.
was something like that happened that you wouldn't be able to come to class, you would be able to watch the videos,
Watch it.
still turn in the work. My music history professor turned his class into a podcast, which was
Oh, that's creative.
it was a little it was interesting because
Yeah.
he he gave us the podcast to listen to along with an assignment to do for the day. And in the
Mhm.
beginning, a lot of it seemed manageable, but as the rest of the semester went on, he would kind of talk a bit more. And as a result, you would have these like 30-minute, 40-minute podcasts, and then have your assignment that would take 30 to 40 minutes. And now I'm sitting here
Mm,
at like 70, 80 minutes for a 50-minute course.
gotcha. Gotcha. So it's kind of like he started to talk more almost like his lecture started to get longer. So it's just like, okay, now I have to listen to this hour long lecture and then still do, an hour's worth of work on top of that. I can see how that could be a little annoying, especially like during these times. But then sometimes like I would think it's easier to kind of just like listen to a lecture, like just put like like your AirPods in your like headphones in and be able to do other stuff like around the house, like that convenience. But then when that other leg of like homework would come, I'm just like, no, this is not gonna work.
I think it's probably more difficult for you, right, Andre? Because I mean, I'm a business major, So it's not like I have to play instruments or anything. Like I just have to listen to
Mm-hmm.
my professors and just like do my work, you know? Meanwhile, like I guess like you need that in person experience instead.
Yeah. Thankfully this semester I didn't necessarily have any field courses where I was supposed to be
Okay.
doing like, observations in classrooms and things like that. It was a lot of like book work. I had one
Mm-hmm.
pedagogy class, but that was single reads, and because I'm a reed major, I had already had experience teaching and playing all the instruments. So thankfully that was an easy A.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like the biggest inconvenience came when professors would release content that wasn't at the same time as the class, because as a result I started procrastinating. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I have the capability to do this later, and the work started piling up and piling up. And I remember about like a week and a half before my music history final, I'm sitting on a Zoom call with four other music majors, and we're all listening to podcasts for like 6 hours.
Yeah, that's rough. But also like that's the reality of it, you know?
Yeah.
We're living in it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world
So how do you
of
feel
it.
about your upcoming semester?
So we don't find information about that until Friday. An email was sent out from uh, the president of Westchester saying initially we were going to be coming back in the fall, but then they announced that we were doing hybrid courses. So select majors would be able to come back to the university, and we would have about 10% of the student population on campus. And the School of Music has been working so hard to try and get us in person because they know that
Yeah.
you can't do music education online. You can't do music performance online. You can't do music therapy online. Like these are things that they have to be done in person. So there have been countless meetings with the president and the whole board trying to see what we can do to make sure that we're staying safe, but also trying to be in person. And they were going to make a decision on that this upcoming Friday.
Right.
I hope it leans in your favor.
So do I, because I actually have field courses this semester. So
Oh, that might be that might be something to think about too. So with the field courses, is that when you go out to different like either community organizations or different stuff and just do like observations on like different folks, or how does that actually work?
so for this course in particular, it's education psychology, and
Okay.
we're supposed to log. I think it's 6 hours of observation within a classroom, two in elementary, two in middle, and two in high. Uh,
Mm,
and it's supposed to be done within the Worcester area. So it's
okay.
most likely Worcester East High School, along with one of the other middle schools that's not too far from campus. But I don't necessarily know if we'll be able to do it or not.
Right. That's
One of
what
the
I was.
tricky things that the education majors were facing last spring is
Mm-hmm.
your last semester in the ed track is all student teaching. So their student
Right.
teaching got cut in half, and they're scrambling around trying to figure out, are we still going to get certified after graduation? Because we didn't fill the Pennsylvania like state requirements for
Mm-hmm.
observation.
Yeah. Yeah. COVID just came in and just wrecked everything. It was just like I'm here.
Real.
Everything is that.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to ask. So our last question before we can go, we have a quick ad. We've been asking everyone we've been talking to is kind of like, what music have you been listening to, or like, what is keeping you? What music or albums have been kind of like keeping you going during this time? Because we're curating a whole playlist where we're going to have all these different like shared music. So we want to get your input too as well, especially the music education major.
So throughout the spring semester, I listened to a lot of Lincolnshire Posey by
Okay.
Percy Granger, because that was the piece that my ensemble was supposed to be playing this spring, and it's kind of a
Yeah.
staple in wind band literature. So
Okay.
listening to that kind of made me feel at home, like I was back in Westchester, even though I was in Philadelphia.
Hmm.
And then Quinn 92, who's one of my favorite artists, just released a new album. So I've been listening to that on repeat for like
Yeah.
a week or so.
Is there a
Okay.
song that you like the most?
either Stacy or 210s, because 210s is talking about he wants to go out with his friends, and he's most likely in high school at this time, and he's like asking if he can have $20 to go hang out with his friends. Just
Oh,
210s, that's all he wants.
I just need 210s. That's it. That's such a cute title. No, all right, we're definitely gonna add them to our playlist, and we'll definitely check them out. I'm actually like writing down names. Like, hold on, let me add them to to my Apple Music right now. All right, cool. So we're gonna wrap up this section. We have a quick ad, so just bear with us through our little ad. And then we'll come back and we're gonna talk more about kind of like some social issues and just touch base and see how you feel about those things as well.
Okay.
All right, y'all. So, as you may or may not know, we did a revamp on our Plus shop on our website at 12plus.org. So basically, now that it looks a bit prettier, we're doing promotions right now. We have a 15% off coupon that's valid until July 31st. So get on that. It's 15% off. So if you type in plus 15, get 15% off. And also we have another promo code. When you spend $50 or more, you get free shipping. And you can combine the two. So that's a really good deal. And all the proceeds go towards us and our mission. So you will be supporting us directly. Yay! Yes.
Come have some 12 plus swag. We got mugs.
We got sweaters.
sweaters.
We got t-shirts. We got beanies. We got some tote bags for y'all.
We got stickers.
Yes, we have stickers coming up. So you gotta look out for that. But yes, use 15% off promo code and the free shipping promo code. I'll link it down below.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, do I have my mom? That would have been perfect. But no, definitely check out our shop. There's a ton of different great things, stuff that you could put right on your desk when we go back to working. We have some great mugs at USC. So if you get a chance, check that out. All right. This is where I would add like some music or something into this part, but we're working on that. We're working on that. All right, so we did also want to touch base on kind of like some of the things that are happening right now within the world. We definitely believe that our students can bring us particular perspective on that, because some of the things are directly impacting them in like so many different ways in the school and outside the school. So we wanted to get your feelings a little bit about kind of like the Black Lives Matter movement and all the things that are, happening between like the protests and between even like the defund the police, just to see your insight and how you feel about those things. And then we can kind of like keep the conversation surrounded around those.
Okay. I can tell you this from like as a Black man in America, I definitely do stand behind the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think that it's time that we finally start getting justice. But in the same vein, it's been a moral dilemma because my father's a police officer, and as a result, I've seen his point of view where he's also a Black man in America, and he has to go, and his main thing when he went on the force was, I want to help people, I want to serve the community, and I want to give back and like protect. And it's been heartbreaking for him to see so many corrupt police officers to the point where that's become like the face of the organization. And a lot of people ask him, like, why do you still go to work every day? Like, why aren't you going on strike and things like that? And it's because at the end of the day, his job is to serve and protect. Whether your beliefs align with his or not, he's still going to be there for you and to like protect you.
Right.
And the two of us have had a lot of conversations about it because a lot of my friends are all for defunding the police, and it's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
Because I can't. I'm not one to say your beliefs are wrong. I'm
Hmm.
just the type to say like, hey, I agree with that, or hey, I don't necessarily agree with that. But at the end of the day, you're entitled to your opinion. You have free
Yeah.
speech. Do what, like, fight for what you fight for, as long as you're passionate and you're aware that that's what you want to stand for.
Right. Right. No, that's definitely valid. And I think a lot of times too, like we don't know everyone's kind of like backstory. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we don't know their connection to these different things. Which is also kind of built on why we believe certain things, right? Because of the way we grew up, the way that we feel about certain things. All of that is influencing that in some particular way. So I think you're right. It's just like, okay, if this is what this is how, this is where you're leaning towards, this is your feelings and your opinions about it, make sure that that's actually how you feel, right? And stand on that and be passionate about it. But I do think it could take a lot of different like twists and turns. Because I also think in like certain professions, like there's always a good and a bad. You know what I'm saying? Like there's really good teachers, there's really bad teachers as well, right? But I think there is a balance of like, oh, at least from my perspective, like I think there is a balance of like where do we invest our money into, you know what I'm saying, that has the impacts the communities the most, right? So I know like I think the from just different research I saw, like the Philadelphia police get like a ton of money, right? But then we look at our schools sometimes and like our schools also don't have it doesn't match. Like our schools don't have social workers, our schools don't have some of the resources that they actually need. So if I could steal like $3, you know, or like a couple dollars and move that there, you know, I'm all for that. But I think like you said, like everyone has their different perspectives and the different way that they're going to look at everything that's happening right now.
I agree, especially as an individual who's going into the education field. I
Yeah.
I have seen it with my own eyes, the lack of funding that the school district of Philadelphia has received and things of the nature. So I do understand the thought process of, hey, we could take just some of this money and put it somewhere else, to the point where like it impacts the community the most at the largest scale, to the point where like other rates of crime could go down, music in schools can go up, arts in schools can go up,
Right.
extracurriculars become like a thing that can actually be tangible. So there's give and take to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I could see like at the end of the day, your dad still needs a job. Like you know what I'm saying? Like he still has to provide. He has a family to provide for. You know what I'm saying? So all these different things play like such a factor in just the way that we navigate and think about the things that are at play at our in our right happening in front of our faces. But I do think a lot of it has been amplified one because of COVID-19. Like I think we've all been inside for so long, and then like all this started happening, just like we're already in our feelings because of this one thing, right? And then it's like let's just add this other layer that like has been a layer for a ton of different years, right? And even before like it was these different movements were here, like this has been a problem. Like it's not just something that just started happening, but it is something that I feel like this time it seems a little different. Like it feels a little different. And I'm not exactly sure why it feels so different this time because like we've been here before with like Trayvon Martin, right? For example, we've been here before with Tamir Rice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we've seen these things happen before, but I don't know, for some reason there's like this extra layer this time that just makes it like feel a little different.
I agree, and I do know that it feels different because I can feel it.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily put your finger on what it is, but it feels different. And my biggest fear going into this, like when all of this stuff first started happening, was that it would it would get like attention, and we would make some progress, but then it gets outdated. So it
Mhm.
feels like one step forward, two steps backwards.
Right.
That it's not just like a hashtag or a trend, but something, because it feels like we've been here before. We've gotten the attention of the entire country, sometimes the entire world, and we're pushing for equality and justice. And it lasts for, say, a month or two. And then it's right back to business as usual.
Mhm.
Like what can we do to tweak what we're doing now to make it a lasting effect? Those are the questions that I've been thinking about a lot recently. Like, what are the different variables? What's working? What is not working that we can use to create a lasting effect?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, like, what are the things that you thought about? Like, do you have any solutions possibly for all of this?
I think it starts with the foundation,
Okay.
because hatred is not necessarily something that you're born with.
Mhm.
It's something that's learned, and as a result, if we all started, and this may not be like the right answer or not, it's just something that I've been thinking about like recently. If we all kind of had a similar start point,
Mm.
just in like slightly different directions, that would allow for us to still have our own opinions, but also being in the same playing field. Like certain points that should be not up for discussion, like the value of life and things like that. Like at the
Yeah.
end, no matter what the skin color is, your life still has meaning.
Like regardless. I think that that's interesting. And you're right. Like I don't think that there is like one right answer, but if everyone kind of was at the same starting point, like yes, you can go on a different path, but like we're still on the same park in a sense, right? We're still running. You're taking this way. I'm just taking this way, right? But at the end of the day, there are these commonalities that we all like a set of mural, what am I saying? Like a set of kind of like mutual values that we all have, like that's a shared value, where it's like, okay, at the end of the day, you can believe this, you can believe that, but like this thing trumps everything else. Like the fact that like you are a human and your life matters in any regard, like that's no question. Like you can't question that, like regardless of what path you're on. I think that that would, but I think also like that would take like kind of bringing everyone back. You know what I'm saying? Because I think we've all ran and we may not be in the same parks anymore. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so everyone is kind of like in their own park in a sense, running on a trail that no one knows. So I think that that's a little bit of what people are doing is kind of like the unlearning of like that learned behavior. Like you said, hatred doesn't just come from, you don't just wake up one morning and like, well, maybe you do, but like you're not born with like this like gene to just hate. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's something that you're taught in your household. That's something that like is taught by the conversations that you may hear your parents have as you're a child. You know what I'm saying? So I think that these little things that have been embedded into us, like at some point they kind of like they rise. Our implicit biases sometimes are just like there. But how do we kind of like start to unlearn that, or even just be aware that like that's what that is? Like even if for me, like if I have a certain perspective on things, I'm just like, okay, like I know that comes from the fact that I was raised this way, right? Or the fact that like I was raised in church and like that's what I was taught to believe, right? But then there's some things that you can, you know, start to unlearn, right? Once you get to a certain age and you're just like, oh wait, there's more history behind this, like, or like, oh wait, there's other opinions behind this. But I think that that is a process that a lot of folks are going through now, is kind of like that unlearning of old learned habits and behaviors.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I feel like especially our generation is definitely doing that unlearning and kind of challenging old beliefs, you know?
Yeah.
You know, the people forefront of the protests and like the activism, you know, a lot of them are people of our generation. And I think it's great that this is happening and it's very much so overdue. But I'm glad that people are speaking up, people of different races, you know. It's a great thing to see, but definitely like I think about it too, you know, like if this is going to be just another trend and if eventually it's going to die down again.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it also comes from like a closed-mindedness, because like one of the things that we're taught with through the IB learner profiles is open-mindedness, and that skill has really come into play with how the last year, 2 years, especially being in college, has played out. I'm open to hearing your argument. I'm open to hearing your point of view, and I'm open to doing research on it. And I feel like there's like a lot of people that once they're set in their ways, they won't entertain the thought of hearing another point of view, another perspective, because at the end of the day, perception shapes reality. So if you're not seeing something directly, then you're not going to think that that exists unless you get another perspective.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally true. Like people be more open, yeah, not be so close-minded and like narrow-minded. Yeah, I really admire your openness, and just being candid about it, because I feel like, a lot of people are set in their ways, and it's really refreshing to hear that, like you're open to hearing other people's point of views.
And I think that just like is super important. I think that's how we learn from each other. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think if we're not willing to hear someone else's viewpoint, or we're not willing to even look at things from someone else's perspective, like we aren't doing any learning or any work within ourselves, in a sense. Like, and that goes back to that narrow mindedness and like closed mindedness, where it's like, this is how life is, this is how I was taught, and this is how it's going to be. When it's like, no, like we said, there's all these other different paths, there's all these other different ways that like people are also on these other different trails, you know what I'm saying? Like, so they have a different perspective because their hill went up and down versus yours that just went down. So no, I think, and also like Amy said, I'm glad that that's something that you're aware of too, like that open-mindedness and being and having the willingness, even to just be like, all right, let me hear your perspective, or let me hear what you're about to bring. And I think that comes back to the point that you made in the beginning, or a little bit earlier, just about like, if that's what you're leaning on, be passionate about that and prove it to me. Like, show me what you mean by that. Like, show me how much education or how much research you have done to actually believe that that's where you're leaning, that's where your opinion is. So, and I think when we share, we kind of, we get to learn everyone else's opinion and everyone else's feelings, and kind of see where they're coming from with that.
Because at the end of the day, like, what's the harm in knowledge? You could find out that something like is actually lining up with your beliefs, and it's just a different perspective of it. Or you can find out like, hey, maybe that's not necessarily for me, but now I know that it's not.
Right.
You've brought all the facts to me. I've pondered it. I've gone over it. I've done my own research, and it's like, okay, at the end of the day, maybe that's not what I'm looking for.
And like, that's okay. Like, that's okay as well too.
Oh, man.
Like, oh man. Oh, I think we could go on and on, but I do think like, oh, I have a cool question. How has your like experience at like Westchester been in relation to that? Like, I know Westchester is definitely, compared to Temple, that pretty diverse. More diverse than Temple. Oh, maybe not. Let me take
I
that back.
I don't necessarily know, because the School of Music is very much replicated like a high school, where we're
Mm,
all in one building and we're doing classes from like 8 to 3, 8 to 4, 8 to 5,
yeah.
and it's all in 15-minute blocks. So you see the same people
Oh,
over
okay.
and over again, and you're traveling in packs because like you have your established friend group, and then you guys
Yeah.
take courses together. So it's like it
Bless
feels.
you, Amy.
Like, I was impressed. Like, did you mute yourself to
Right.
see?
That was like you had a shortcut for that. And then,
Sorry, continue.
So it's kind of been like the atmosphere of a high school, where you move,
yeah.
you see the same people, and you end up uh, aligning with people who have similar ideals with you, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because if you're only around people that have similar ideals, then everything becomes an echo chamber.
Mhm.
If you're saying the same thing, you're hearing the same thing back, and there's no one to challenge you on what you believe and why you believe it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I agree, I agree, stuff like that.
Right.
I,
So there's kind of like no pushback.
yeah, I just have a question about that. So you said that it kind of feels like high school all over again. So Cause you know, like like you see the same people every single day, and you're just around the same type of environment. Like, does it get kind of old? Like, do you kind of wish um you weren't in that environment anymore? Like being able to meet new people all the time and like just getting different perspectives.
Yes, I will 100% admit it. And one common thing that happens in the education track and the music track, just in general, is that within the first 2 years, we'll lose like a third of our class that we come in with. At least at Westchester, I should say. We'll lose a third of our class because we get there and they realize either A, that's not necessarily what they wanted, B, the workload breaks them, or C, they find a passion in something else.
Yeah, because I know that, people want to go to college to meet new people and to
Yeah.
do things. So yeah, that's very interesting to hear that. Even after you left high school, it's kind of like you're back in that high school vibe again.
The most like outreach that I had outside from the music building was my freshman and sophomore year in the dorms, because that's when I got the chance to meet other people and like people that weren't music majors and had different passions. Or well, I should say there's that, and also at the rock climbing wall, because that's where we would go in the rec center and stuff like that, and you get the chance to see like, these different people
That's
from
cool.
the majors and stuff like that.
That's cool.
That's really cool. At least you can go rock climbing and do that.
I know there's one at Temple, point I've like always been very hesitant about ever doing it because I don't know if I have like that balance. I think it'll take time, but
Definitely. It's all
yeah.
about it's not necessarily all upper body strength. It's learning how to distribute your weight.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
that's just me personally. Like, I'm too much of a scaredy cat to do that.
Get all the way to the top and like, okay, how do I get down? Can you help me get down?
Yeah, I'm probably the one behind.
Oh man.
um,
You got any other questions, Amy?
no, I think we had a really great talk.
Mm-hmm.
It was really great, Andre, hearing your perspective, especially about
Yeah.
your family and how your dad's a policeman. I think that was very like interesting and insightful to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we said earlier, like thank you for having, the openness and that open-mindedness. Like even like just in the general conversation that we've been having, it's really nice to kind of like see the growth of students, like just seeing you a dear applicant and then like being able to just talk with you and discuss that with you. And also just like your different perspective on things. Like I really appreciate it. I think our audience, our live audience, our audience will also appreciate it. I think too, because they don't hear enough from young folks. You know what I'm saying? Like I think a lot of our audience kind of like we talked about this conversation, like when you're in a group that's who you associate with, right? That's who you hear, that you hear their perspective. You're not hearing anyone else's. So we're hoping with, these podcasts that folks are able to hear people that are on different trails, because I like this trail reference and this park thing we got going on. But like just hear perspective from different people that are running on different trails and that like have a unique connection to the stuff that we're talking about. So hopefully it brings that perspective back to them. So that's our ultimate goal with this. And I appreciate you and just your openness and your willingness to participate and chat with us.
Of course. I love educating, so I'm hoping that through this I got the chance to enlighten someone or give insight to a certain topic or things like that, because that's my passion.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure we have a ton of music majors that are probably like, oh wait, I have to audition too. So this is like also a good perspective for them as well to kind of hear about that. And hopefully like some of our young people or like our rising seniors can also listen to this and like check out their applicant, because those anxieties and those different things, like yes, we like surrounded it around music, but like just doing like your regular college application or wherever you're going can also like bring on that same anxiety and those same like fears and questions about it. So I thank you for even like doing that and just like contributing that and putting your own kind of story into that, because it seemed very genuine, like, you know what I'm saying, very genuine, very authentic, even the way it was like shot and filmed, and everything about it was just like, oh wow, I can connect to that, or oh, I can relate to that, even if it wasn't in like a college application perspective, but just like things I could pull out from just like life in general. So thank you, appreciate you for that.
Of course.
All right, so do we wrap it up?
Yeah, so with all that being said, thank you, Andre, for being in this episode of Discuss the Plus. Yeah, thank you for watching. Check out our plus shop.
check out the plus shop. There's plenty of stuff there for the whole family.